The silent abduction. The Montana wilderness stretched endlessly under the summer sun, its vast forests concealing secrets both earthly and otherworldly. 12-year-old Sarah Chen sat cross-legged on a rock by Crystal Lake, her tablet displaying complex mathematical equations that would baffle most adults. But Sarah wasn't most children. The equations were part of what her parents called games, complex problem-solving scenarios that she'd been playing since she could walk. Today's challenge involved calculating orbital trajectories, though Sarah assumed it was just another one of her parents' creative ways of teaching advanced mathematics. High above Earth's atmosphere, the Skiteri research vessel maintained its perfect cloak, its sensors focused on the solitary human child below. The ship's commander, first observer Angslith, studied the readings with growing interest. This one shows promise. Angslith clicked to his research team. Isolated, young enough for neural plasticity, and exhibiting signs of above-average intelligence for their primitive species, his long, crystalline fingers manipulated the holographic display, zooming in on Sarah's vital signs. The Skiteri had been studying Earth for decades, dismissing humans as an emerging species barely worth noting. Their interest had only recently peaked when they discovered unusual patterns in human children, patterns that suggested untapped potential for their evolution experiments. Sarah felt the change in the air before she saw anything. The birds had stopped singing, and the surface of the lake had become unusually still. She reached for the simple silver bracelet her mother had given her on her last birthday. "Never take it off, sweetheart. It's more important than you know." The air shimmered above her, and Sarah's first instinct wasn't to run. Instead, she quickly saved her work and activated the tablet's emergency protocol, just as her parents had taught her. When in doubt, Sarah, press the red button. No questions asked. The beam of light that engulfed her was silent, almost beautiful in its crystalline patterns. As Sarah felt herself being lifted from the ground, her last action was to smile slightly. Her parents had prepared her for many scenarios, more than any normal child would need to know. In their remote Montana research facility, Dr. Lisa Chen and Dr. James Chen received the emergency alert simultaneously. Their reactions revealed nothing of the ordinary scientists they appeared to be. "Signal locked," James announced, his fingers flying across what had appeared to be a normal desk, but now displayed advanced holographic controls. "They're still in low orbit." Lisa was already moving, her lab coat discarded to reveal a sleek tactical uniform underneath. Authorization code. Phoenix Rising. "This is Commander Chen. We have a code black. I repeat, code black. They've taken my daughter." Across the globe, hidden facilities hummed to life. In the depths of the Mariana Trench, massive hangar doors began to open. Beneath the Antarctic ice, thermal signatures spiked as dormant engines awakened. And in orbit, satellites that had masqueraded as defunct space junk quietly oriented themselves toward a single point in space. Aboard the Skiteri vessel, Sarah was placed in what they considered a secure containment cell. The aliens expected fear, confusion, or at least distress from their young specimen. Instead, Sarah sat calmly, her eyes taking in every detail of her surroundings. She noted the cell's construction, the guard patterns, and what appeared to be ventilation shafts, all part of the observation games she played with her mother. Subject appears unusually calm, a Skiteri researcher noted, perhaps a sign of limited emotional development in the species. Sarah remembered her father's words during their weekend camping trips that always seemed to involve survival training. "The best advantage you can have, sweetheart, is when they underestimate you." As the Skiteri ship prepared to jump to light speed, Sarah began counting under her breath. Not in fear, but in precise calculation. She knew exactly how long it would take her parents to track her signal. She knew the capabilities of Earth's hidden fleet. And most importantly, she knew why her parents had trained her since birth for situations exactly like this. The Skiteri were about to learn a crucial lesson about humanity. Never judge a species by its apparent technology level, and never, ever take their children. As the ship's engines powered up for faster-than-light travel, Sarah allowed herself a small smile. The real game was about to begin. Hidden strengths. The Skitari research vessel cut through hyperspace, its crystalline hull pulsing with energy as it carried its precious cargo toward the species' main research facility. In her containment cell, Sarah Chen had already mapped every corner of her environment, her mind cataloging details that her captors never expected a primitive species to notice. Through the translucent walls, she could see other cells containing children from around the world. Some were crying, others appeared frozen in fear. Sarah knew she had to help them, but first, she needed to understand her environment completely. Her mother's voice echoed in her memory. Knowledge before action, sweetheart. The most powerful weapon you have is your mind. The Skitari scientists continued their preliminary observations, completely unaware that their subject was conducting her own research. Sarah had already identified 7 different technological systems just from watching the guards' interactions with their equipment. The aliens' overconfidence made them careless around what they considered a simple primitive. "Excuse me," Sarah called out to a passing guard, her voice carefully calibrated to sound innocent and frightened. "I'm really scared. Could you tell me what that big glowing thing in the engine room is? The one making the humming sound." The guard clicked dismissively, but Sarah had already noted how its crystalline appendages interfaced with the ship's control panels. Each movement, each gesture, revealed more about their technology. It wasn't so different from the abstract logic puzzles her parents had her solve during their family game nights. Back on Earth, humanity's response was taking shape. The Chen family's remote research facility had transformed into one of many command centers coordinating a global response. The facility's outer walls retracted, revealing banks of quantum computers and advanced AI systems that had been hidden in plain sight. "Signal tracking confirmed," James announced, his hands dancing across holographic displays. "Sarah's beacon is still active. They have no idea it's there." Lisa Chen stood at the center of the command room, her scientist's demeanor replaced by the bearing of someone intimately familiar with advanced military operations. "Status report on the fleet." A holographic display materialized, showing dozens of ships emerging from hidden bases worldwide. Some rose from the oceans, others appeared from beneath mountain ranges or desert sands. Each vessel represented decades of secret technological development, preserved in hiding while humanity played the role of a developing civilization. "Atlantic Fleet reporting ready," an officer announced. "Pacific and Indian Ocean squadrons at full deployment. Lunar-based defense systems online." In orbit, the massive ship that had been disguised as a defunct space station shed its primitive exterior, revealing the sleek warship beneath. Its name blazed across the hull in pulsing quantum script: Terra's Promise. Aboard the Skitari vessel, the lead researcher was beginning to notice disturbing patterns in their subject's behavior. The human child's neural scans showed activity that shouldn't be possible for a primitive species. More concerning were the questions she asked, each one somehow relating to critical ship systems. "Update the containment protocols," he ordered. "Something isn't right about this specimen." But Sarah had already gathered most of what she needed. The ship's ventilation system was large enough for someone her size. The guard rotation had 3-minute gaps. And most importantly, she had made contact with the other children through a series of hand signals taught during what her parents had called International Friendship Camp last summer. In the cell across from her, a young boy from Russia named Victor gave her the signal she'd been waiting for. Next to him, Maria from Brazil confirmed she was ready. 6 other children in nearby cells responded similarly. None of them were ordinary children, and none of them had been taken by accident. Sarah pressed her palm against her cell wall, feeling the vibrations of the ship's engines. The patterns were familiar, similar to the theoretical problems her parents had her solve. She could almost map the ship's entire power distribution system just from these vibrations. "Hey," she called out to another guard, her voice still carefully maintaining that note of childish fear. "What happens if someone touches those big crystal things in the power room?" The ones with all the warning signs. They look really pretty. The guard's dismissive click held a note of concern this time. The questions were starting to form a pattern, but surely a primitive child couldn't understand their technology. The guard increased the cell's security level anyway, not realizing that was exactly what Sarah had wanted. Now she could observe their highest security protocols in action. In the ship's command center, the Skuteri captain received a priority alert. Long-range sensors had detected energy signatures that shouldn't exist near Earth. When the computer finally identified them, the captain's crystalline form vibrated with shock. Multiple warships were rising from Earth's surface, their technology equal to or exceeding Skuteri capabilities. The primitive planet had hidden teeth, and they had just kicked the hornet's nest. As the first faster-than-light signatures appeared behind them, Sarah felt the ship's engines change pitch. She smiled. Right on schedule. Phase 1 of her plan was complete, gathering intelligence. Now it was time for Phase 2, showing the Skuteri exactly why taking human children was their biggest mistake. She reached for her silver bracelet, not just a tracking device, but a sophisticated quantum computer disguised as jewelry. Everything her parents had taught her, every game they had played, had been preparation for moments like this. The Skuteri were about to learn that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their hidden fleet or advanced technology. It was how they prepared their children. Earth rises. The Skuteri ship's command center erupted into chaos as sensor alerts screamed across every console. The captain's crystalline form pulsed with agitation as the impossible data poured in. Earth's forces were not only following them through hyperspace, they were gaining. Impossible. The captain clicked rapidly. Their technology level was verified. They barely achieved lunar landing capability. They cannot have this level of advancement. But the evidence was undeniable. The pursuing fleet's energy signatures matched or exceeded their own capabilities. Worse, their tactics showed intimate knowledge of hyperspace pursuit dynamics that should have been far beyond human understanding. In her cell, Sarah felt the ship's subtle course changes through the vibrations in the floor. Her fingers moved across her silver bracelet in precise patterns, sending quantum-encrypted messages to the other children. Each of them had been chosen for their unique capabilities, trained through programs disguised as enrichment camps and advanced learning initiatives. Victor, the Russian boy, had already memorized the ship's electrical architecture. Maria from Brazil had mapped the ventilation system access points. Akid from Japan had decoded the basics of the aliens' computer language just by watching their information displays. They weren't just random abductees, they were humanity's next generation of defenders, hidden in plain sight. On Earth, operations centers around the planet coordinated their response. The Chen family facility linked with dozens of others, forming a neural network of command centers that had remained hidden for decades. The holographic displays showed humanity's true technological achievement, a defense network that spanned not just Earth, but the entire solar system. Lisa Chen watched as the lunar defense platforms activated, revealing weapon systems disguised as impact craters. Mars colonies that appeared to be early research outposts shed their primitive coverings, exposing fully developed military bases. Even the asteroid belt now sparkled with the activation of thousands of automated defense platforms. "Status report," she commanded, her voice carrying the weight of years of preparation for this moment. "Terra's Promise reports full battle readiness." An officer responded. "The lunar shield is active. Mars Defense Command is online. The asteroid belt defense grid is charged and tracking." James Chen's hands danced across his control panel, coordinating the quantum-encrypted communications between all forces. Sarah's beacon shows they're heading toward the Perseus Arm, right where we expected their main facility to be. Lisa nodded grimly. They thought they were studying us, never realizing we were studying them. She turned to the main display. "All forces, execute Operation Bright Dawn. Show them exactly who they're dealing with." Across the solar system, humanity's hidden technology activated in a carefully choreographed sequence. Satellites previously thought to be space junk revealed themselves as advanced weapon platforms. Defunct space stations transformed into battlecruisers. What appeared to be primitive early warning systems became quantum radar arrays that could track ships across light years. The Skiteri research vessel shuddered as another hyperspace jump failed to shake their pursuers. In the containment cells, Sarah felt the change in engine tone and gave the signal. It was time. Her bracelet connected with the other children's hidden devices, forming a quantum network that interfaced with the ship's systems. Years of playing computer games had actually been training in alien computer systems. Every puzzle they had solved had been preparation for this moment. Beginning Phase 3, Sarah vocalized, the quantum transmitter in her bracelet sending the message to both the other children and the pursuing fleet. Stand by for system access. The Skiteri never noticed their ship's computer systems being quietly infiltrated. Their arrogance had led them to ignore the possibility that their primitive captives could understand their technology, let alone hack it. They had no way of knowing that Earth's children played with quantum computers disguised as toys, or that their games involved solving problems far beyond what the Skiteri thought possible for humans. In the ship's engine room, crucial systems began to falter. Security protocols experienced mysterious glitches. Navigation computers reported conflicting data. The Skiteri crew struggled to understand what was happening, never suspecting that their ship was being systematically compromised by the very children they had abducted. All ships maintain pursuit vector. Lisa Chen commanded Earth's fleet. Sarah's team is right on schedule. The Skiteri ship's captain watched in growing horror as more human vessels emerged from hyperspace around them, cutting off every escape route. Their sensors now showed the true extent of Earth's fleet. Hundreds of ships, each bristling with weapons that should not have existed. But the real surprise was yet to come. As Sarah and her fellow captives executed their carefully planned cyber assault, the Skiteri were about to learn the hardest lesson of all. In their arrogance, they hadn't just abducted human children. They had brought aboard the most sophisticated infiltration team ever assembled. And now, those children were about to show them exactly what humanity's next generation was capable of. The Children's Revolution. The Skiteri ship's corridors echoed with alarm klaxons as system after system began to fail. In the containment area, Sarah Chen's fingers danced across her bracelet's hidden interface, coordinating the most sophisticated cyber assault ever implemented by children. Victor, status on power systems. She vocalized. Main reactor protocols compromised. The Russian boy's response came through their quantum network. Safety systems locked out. They can't shut us down without dropping out of hyperspace. Maria's voice joined in. Ventilation control secured. I can redirect atmosphere flow to any section of the ship. Her years of environmental simulation games had actually been training in spacecraft life support systems. The Skiteri crew raced through their ship, desperately trying to regain control of their own systems. They still couldn't comprehend how their technology was being overwhelmed. Their arrogance had prevented them from recognizing that what they saw as primitive entertainment devices were actually sophisticated quantum computers, and what they dismissed as children's games were advanced tactical training. In the ship's research lab, the lead scientists stared at updated neural scans of their captives with growing horror. The patterns he saw weren't just advanced. They showed signs of deliberate enhancement. These children's brains had been carefully developed since birth, their neural pathways optimized for exactly this type of operation. Security breach in detention block. The alert came too late. The cell doors were already opening, responding to commands that appeared to come from the ship's own control systems. Sarah stepped out of her cell, her movements precise and confident. Around her, the other children emerged as well, each moving with purpose. Their years of physical education had included zero-gravity training and combat techniques disguised as dance and gymnastics. Phase 4 initiated. Sarah broadcast to both her team and the pursuing Earth fleet, beginning internal takeover. The Skiteri guards who rushed to contain the situation found themselves facing an impossible scenario. The children moved through the ship's corridors with practiced efficiency, using their small size to advantage. Every security measure they tried was countered before it could be implemented. Aki, the Japanese boy who had decoded their computer language, had already locked them out of their own communication systems. Internal comms compromised, he reported. They can't coordinate their response. In Earth's pursuit fleet, Lisa Chen watched the operation unfold through the quantum feed from Sarah's team. Status of the Skitarii vessel. Their engines are locked in their current vector, James reported. They'll reach their main facility in 12 minutes, but, he smiled, they won't be in control when they arrive. The Skitarii captain watched in mounting despair as more systems fell to the children's assault. Weapons, navigation, life support, everything was being systematically taken over through methods that shouldn't have been possible. The ship's eye itself seemed to be responding to commands in languages it shouldn't have recognized. Sarah and her team converged on the ship's bridge, moving through access ways that the Skitarii had thought too small to be a security concern. Years of exploration games in confined spaces had prepared them for exactly this. Bridge team in position. Sarah transmitted. All systems compromised. Ready for final phase. The Skitarii bridge crew turned as the access panels opened, revealing children who moved with military precision. Sarah stepped forward, her young face showing a maturity that finally made the aliens understand their catastrophic mistake. You believed we were primitive. She addressed the captain in perfect Skitarii language, her pronunciation flawless from years of linguistic games that had actually been sophisticated xenolinguistic training. You thought our technology was limited, our children defenseless. You never considered that everything you saw might be exactly what we wanted you to see. Through the bridge viewport, space lit up as Earth's fleet emerged from hyperspace, surrounding the ship in a display of overwhelming force. But it wasn't just warships. Dozens of diplomatic vessels also appeared, bearing markings of human nations and organizations that the Skitarii had never known existed. Humanity has been watching, learning, and preparing, Sarah continued. Every child you took was chosen. Every game we played was training. Every toy we carried was a weapon you were too arrogant to recognize. The ship's systems came fully under their control just as they approached the Skitarii research facility. But what the aliens had thought would be their moment of triumph had become something else entirely. Humanity's formal introduction to the galactic community on their own terms. And as Sarah stood on the bridge of the captured ship, surrounded by her team of equally prepared children, the Skitarii finally understood the true scope of their mistake. They hadn't discovered a primitive species ripe for experimentation. They had provoked a sleeping giant that had been quietly preparing for this moment for generations. The real question was no longer about humanity's capabilities, but rather, what else had humanity been hiding? Never underestimate humanity. The Skitarii research facility hung in space like a crystalline cathedral, its vast structure housing the collected knowledge of a species that had thought themselves far superior to humanity. Now, as the captured ship approached under the control of human children, that assumption was being thoroughly shattered. Sarah Chen stood on the bridge, her quantum bracelet interfacing directly with the ship's systems. Around her, the other children maintained their positions with practiced efficiency. Through the view screen, they could see hundreds of Earth vessels emerging from hyperspace, surrounding the facility in an ever-tightening formation. Final approach locked in, Victor reported from his position at navigation. All systems responding perfectly to our commands. The Skitarii captain, now under guard, watched in stunned silence as these primitive children operated his ship with more skill than his own crew. His crystalline form vibrated with a mixture of fear and dawning understanding. You still don't fully comprehend what's happening, do you? Sarah addressed him, her voice carrying the weight of generations of preparation. You thought you were conducting an experiment. You never realized you were part of one. On the quantum communications channel, Lisa Chen's voice came through clearly. Operation status, Sarah. Phase 5 initiating now, Mother. Sarah responded, her fingers dancing across the ship's control interface. uploading the data package to their central database. Throughout the facility, alerts began blaring as humanity's true message began spreading through their systems. It wasn't just a show of force, it was a revelation. The children's quantum devices connected to the facility's network, revealing the truth that had been hidden in plain sight for decades. Earth had never been primitive. Every piece of primitive technology the Skitarii had observed had been carefully crafted. Every satellite they thought was simple was a sophisticated sensor platform. Every space mission they dismissed as basic had been gathering intelligence. "We knew you were watching," Sarah explained to the stunned aliens. "We knew you were studying us, so we gave you exactly what you expected to see. A developing species, just advanced enough to be interesting, but not advanced enough to be a threat." The facility's main screen came alive with data streams showing the truth. Humanity had spread far beyond what the Skitarii had detected. Hidden colonies dotted the solar system. Advanced research stations operated in dimensional space the aliens hadn't even discovered yet. "But your greatest mistake," Sarah continued, "wasn't underestimating our technology. It was underestimating our children." The other abducted children stepped forward, each activation their own quantum devices. As they did, their true capabilities became clear. They weren't just random targets. They were representatives of humanity's next generation of leaders, scientists, and defenders. "Every game we played was training," Maria explained, her young voice confident. "Every puzzle we solved was preparation. Every toy we carried was a tool." Aki added, his quantum computer still interfacing with the facility systems. Through the view screens, they could see more ships arriving, not just from Earth, but from human colonies and outposts the Skitarii had never detected. A united humanity, revealing itself on its own terms. James Chen's voice came through the command channel. "All Earth forces in position. The facility is completely surrounded." Lisa added, "Diplomatic channels are open. The galactic community is watching. It's time for the final revelation." Sarah nodded, then addressed the Skitarii captain one last time. "You took children because you thought we were weak, because you thought we were primitive. You never considered that we might be exactly what humanity needed you to think we were." The facility's central database completed its update, and the full truth of humanity's capabilities became clear to every alien watching. Earth hadn't just been hiding its technology. It had been quietly preparing for full integration with the galactic community, but on its own terms and with its own principles intact. "Consider this humanity's formal introduction to the galaxy," Sarah announced, her voice carried across all channels. "We come in peace, but we come prepared. We offer friendship, but demand respect. And most importantly," she looked directly at the Skitarii captain, "we protect our children." As the diplomatic ships moved in to begin formal first contact procedures, Sarah exchanged glances with her fellow young operators. They had done more than just stop an alien abduction. They had helped humanity step onto the galactic stage in exactly the way their parents' generation had planned. The Skitarii had thought they were studying a primitive species. Instead, they had become an object lesson for the entire galaxy. Never underestimate humanity, and never ever mess with their children. Because sometimes, the most powerful weapons aren't the ones you can see. Sometimes, they're disguised as toys, games, and the innocent laughter of playing children.